Earlier this morning, the U.S. Census Bureau released U.S. retail sales data from the month of August. Here's what we learned. U.S. retail sales rose by 0.6% in August on a month-over-month basis, higher than the 0.2% increase economists were expecting. Meanwhile, core retail sales, which excludes autos, grew by 0.7% over the same span. That's also above economists' expectations. Joining me now for more on this is Marie Driscoll. She's the adjunct professor at the New School and retail advisor at Rethink. Marie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. It's great to be here.
Oh, great to have you back.
Yeah.
So these numbers just dropped. What is your takeaway from these numbers?
The consumer is really holding in there. I mean, despite talks about inflation and certainly feeling inflation in food and in some travel prices, the consumer is spending. They're spending a lot. Strong back to school season. We saw apparel up significantly. It was one of the strongest performing categories. Sporting goods strong. So these are both non-discretionary, needed for back to school, back to college, and also discretionary. In the last 2 weeks, I was at a Goldman Sachs retail conference when I heard Tony Spring talk, and what he said was the consumer is all about newness. Newness is really important. So the consumer is looking for value and newness. We see a shift of some of the spending. They're not spending, gasoline prices are down, so that's giving them some fuel. Consumers weren't traveling as much. They were taking shorter trips, costing less. They had money to spend. They spent on eating out. Eating out was up like 6.5%. One of the strongest categories was miscellaneous retailers. Miscellaneous retailers is really secondhand stores, and we know how youth love that.
All right, and what effect, if any, are tariffs having on sales?
So it really hasn't flown through yet. I mean, we keep waiting for tariffs to impact pricing and maybe by consumers in anticipation of tariffs to come. Where we're seeing tariffs mostly, the categories where tariffs would be impacted, furniture, and furniture sales were soft. Homes are still impacted by interest rates, which this week perhaps we'll see, and highly expected that we'll see a 25 basis point drop in the Fed funds rate.
And regarding tariffs, what do you think will happen in like the next year or so around tariffs and retail spending?
Yeah, I think the tariffs hit next year. I think an interesting way for retailers and brands to deal with tariffs is if you want newness, it's hard to compare a new product versus an old price. So if you're showing newness to the consumer, they're not able to compare and they're going to buy. If you're showing things that are the same old and they're up because of tariffs, not going to work. And really, at the end of the day, the consumer has choices. And the consumer will choose. If you're pushing through tariffs that are significantly large, the consumer is going to opt for something else.
Big picture, what does this report today reveal about the health of the consumer?
I think it shows that the consumer is doing really well. We have a few data points that are worrisome. Unemployment is up modestly, just from 4.2 to 4.3% on the latest reading, but the number of new jobs and the people versus the unemployment rate, that's the JOLT metric, and that is not so good. And really, so we're teetering on a worse position for employment. So you want to see employment stabilize, and that's where I'm mostly concerned.
And I know you mentioned Fed rate cuts.
Mm-hmm.
That meeting is happening tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Right.
What effect, if any, if that cut is made, do you think it'll have on retail?
So I think it's largely expected. I think it'll be a sigh of relief. I think business leaders will feel comfortable that it's going down. The consumer will register it and will start to register it in terms of their housing, in terms of the ability to buy, to get a mortgage at a lower rate. That's what's really important for the consumer, because housing is so expensive now.
All right, Marie Driscoll, adjunct professor at the New School and retail advisor at Rethink. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here, Ashley.
Coming up,